Hello everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending upon when you are watching this video lecture. In the earlier sessions related to the head of income PGBP, we discussed about the charging section, some of the concepts related to this head of income, some general principles to be followed, and then we started the discussion on deductions which are allowed under this head starting from section 30 and 31 and 32. We were continuing the discussion within section 32, that is related to depreciation, and we solved some of the questions also applying section 32 depreciation. Let us continue that discussion related to 32 and let us solve some more questions which were given in the ICA material before we move on to the next provision. Look at this question. Sai Limited has a book value or block of assets carrying 15% rate of depreciation whose written down value on 1/4/2019 was 40 lakhs. That was the beginning or opening WDV. And it purchased another asset, second hand plant and machinery of the same block on 1/11/2019. The date of purchase is important. That is 1/11/2019. Definitely it will be put to use for less than 180 days. November means November, December, January, February, March, only 5 months means less than 180 days. And the cost of the asset purchased was 14.4 lakhs and put to use on the same day. Then what happened? Sai Limited was amalgamated with Shirdi Limited with effect from 1/1/2020. 1st January 2020, amalgamation of Sai Limited happened with Shirdi Limited. You are required to compute depreciation allowable to both Sai Limited and Shirdi Limited for the previous year ended 31st March 2020, assuming that the assets were transferred to Shirdi Limited at 60 lakhs. That is completely immaterial. We have to apply the provisions related to actual cost. At what price actually the assets are transferred by the amalgamating company to the amalgamated company is immaterial. What Income Tax Act says, whatever the WDV of the assets for the amalgamated company, that itself will be the starting point for amalgamated company, that is transferor and transferee. So the 60 lakhs is unnecessary information, don't fall for that. But nevertheless, what is our requirement here? We are not here to find out the WDV or actual cost. The question is depreciation that is allowable to both the companies for the previous year is what is asked. And of course, this plant and machinery were purchased by paying account pay check, not in cash, so that no disallowance is there. This is the question. Like any other reorganization, any other change of the ownership of the assets during the previous year, whatever that may be, questions can be given on any situation whatsoever. Some ownership has changed. So there is a predecessor of the assets and successor of the assets, whoever they may be. Question is always about how to split the depreciation claim between those two people. Simple logic is, first we have to compute depreciation as if never some actual amalgamation has happened. Then we have to split the depreciation so computed in accordance with the number of days of usage by each of those organizations. That's all. So for this purpose, we need to find out what would be the depreciation first of all, and then we have to split that depreciation according to the number of days of usage. So let us look at the depreciation calculation first. Say whatever was the opening written down value, which was 40 lakhs, that was the opening WDV. On that, naturally 15% depreciation would be available, no problem in that. So 40 lakhs, on 40 lakhs, 15% means 6 lakhs would be the depreciation that would be available on the opening WDV anyway. But in addition to that, there was another asset belonging to the same block that was purchased for 14.4 lakhs. And it was given that that asset is a second hand plant and machinery. One more unnecessary information. Why second hand would be relevant, if at all relevant? That would be relevant only for additional depreciation, not for normal depreciation. And we don't know what Sai Limited, Shirdi Limited do, so we cannot claim additional depreciation automatically. Additional depreciation is available only for those organizations which are involved in the manufacturing or production of any article or thing, or those who are in the business of generation, distribution, transmission of power. We don't know what Sai Limited does, so we cannot assume that additional depreciation will be available, not necessary. So normal depreciation will be anyway available for every SSC. So in that case, second hand, first hand, 44th hand, it doesn't matter. Ultimately depreciation is available. But how much will be available? Will that be 15% on 14.4 lakhs? Answer is no. Why? Because the assets were put to use for less than 180 days. So depreciation on that 14 lakhs 40,000 rupees will be only 7.5% instead of 15%. Half only will be available. To whom it is available, will come to that later. First calculate 14 lakh 40,000 into 7.5%. That comes to 1 lakh 8,000. This is basic calculation of depreciation irrespective of who is the SSC that they will claim. But once we have calculated this, we have to split this into two parts, wherein how much can be claimed by Sai Limited, how much can be claimed by Shirdi Limited. That depends upon what? That depends upon the number of days of usage. So, first let us split this 6 lakhs rupees, which was there from the beginning of the year. So, there is usage of entire 366 days, because 2020 is a leap year. So, out of 366 days, how many days Shirdi Limited would have used it? Because the amalgamation happened on 1/1/2020. So, January 31 days, February 29 days, be careful, March 31 days. That means 91 days out of 366 would have been the number of days of usage of that asset by Shirdi Limited. So naturally, how many number of days will be for Sai Limited? 275 days. That's all. We need to split this 6 lakhs rupees in this ratio. 6 lakhs into 91 by 366, 6 lakhs into 275 divided by 366. So let us take that first, Sai Limited and Shirdi Limited. Sai Limited, how much it will get? Calculate. 6 lakhs into 275. Sai Limited is the predecessor. Divided by 366 approximately. Don't write any decimals and all. How much is that? 4,50,820. So 4,50,820 is what Sai Limited can claim out of this 6 lakhs. Naturally, the remaining will be claimed by Shirdi Limited. That comes to around 1,49,180. Or you can calculate that also. 6 lakhs into 91 by 366 approximately, that will be the same, 1,41,180. That is about this 6 lakhs. Now coming to this 1,08,000, what about the number of days of usage? First of all, as far as Shirdi Limited is concerned, that will be 91 only, because the amalgamation itself happened on 1st January 2020. But very important point here, you have to be careful is, for Sai Limited it will not be 275 days. Why? Because the asset was not acquired in the beginning of the year. It was acquired on 1st November 2019. Means Sai Limited, how many days it would have used? For November 30 days, December 31 days. That means only 61 days Sai Limited would have used it. Blindly if you take 275, that would go wrong. So 91 days Shirdi Limited, okay. That is from January 1st to 31st March, that is 91, that is same. But Sai Limited did not use it for 275 days, it used it only for 61 days. So we have to distribute this 1,08,000 in that ratio. So this is 61 plus 91, 152. So how the calculation will be? 1,08,000 into 61 by 152. That comes to 43,342 for Sai Limited. 43,342 for Sai Limited. That is the total depreciation that Sai Limited can claim. You can calculate the total of that. How much is that? 43,342 plus 450,820. So the final answer is 4,94,162 is what Sai Limited can claim. 4,94,162. That is for Sai Limited. And for Shirdi Limited, how much? Let us calculate that separately. So 1,08,000 into 91 by 152 first. That comes to 64,658. That means what is the total of entire Shirdi Limited's depreciation? 64,658 plus 149,180. That comes to 2,13,838. Just check the totals always for arithmetical accuracy. Total depreciation, both of the companies put together, how much they are claiming? 7,08,000. That is the total, right? 6 lakhs plus 1,08,000. But we just have apportioned the depreciation that can be claimed by the predecessor company and successor company. The predecessor company can claim 494,162. Successor company can claim 2,13,838. That's all. That is how calculation and apportionment of depreciation should happen. Then, moving on to the next question. A car was purchased by Dr. Soman on 10th of August 2016, long back, for 5,25,000 rupees for personal use. That is brought into the professional use on 1/7/2019 by him during our previous year when the market value was 2,50,000. Question is, what is the actual cost of the car and what is the amount of depreciation for the assessment year 2021, assuming the rate of depreciation to be 15%, he says. This is also a little bit of trick question. What people will do very seriously, taking from 16, 17, 17, 18, 18, 19, they will provide depreciation notionally and then find out actual cost before the beginning of our previous year, then find out depreciation for the current year. All of that will go wrong because you remember the discussion and very important provisions of actual cost. What was actual cost? Actual cost was calculated on notional WDV basis only when a building was brought into professional use from personal use. That provision was applicable only for building. Was that applicable for car also or any other asset also? No. Which means what? All the information unnecessarily is not at all relevant for us. We don't calculate anything. Whatever the original cost of the car, whenever it was purchased, we don't know. That itself will be the actual cost. 5,25,000 multiplied with. When was this brought into professional use? 1/7/2019 means during the previous year more than 180 days, which means 15% of 5,25,000. So that is the final answer. 5,25,000 into 15%. 78,750 is the amount of depreciation that doctor can claim during the previous year. That's all. Why? Because there is no concept of notional depreciation and notional WDV for a car. And there is no mention about market value and all that. You don't please create the provisions because information is available. When there is no provision like that, no provision like that. What is the actual cost? Original cost only. What was original cost? 5,25,000. Rate of depreciation 15%. So 78,750 is the final answer for that question. These type of questions can be asked for MCQ type of model questions. Now moving on to another question, which was also a similar question given in the past examinations. A newly qualified chartered accountant, Mr. Dhawal, commenced practice and has acquired the following assets in his office during the financial year 1920 at the costs shown against each item. Calculate the amount of depreciation that can be claimed from his professional income for the assessment year 2021. So what we have to calculate, that we have to keep in mind very well. What was asked in the question is depreciation. That's all. And assume that all assets were purchased by way of account pay check. Even if it is not given, you better assume that only. Why? Because normally, if nothing is mentioned, we don't have to disallow things for the SSCs. When it is given that some portion is paid by cash, and if that exceeds 10,000 rupees per person per day, then we have to disallow that. We have to ignore that while computing the actual cost. But when it is clearly given that that is purchased by account pay check, that is okay. All of the assets mentioned below are eligible for depreciation, simply speaking. Look at the assets and date of acquisition and date when they are put to use. So this is another important point. What does the date of acquisition and date of put to use, which of them will be relevant for us? Date of acquisition? No. Date when the asset is put to use, because the words used in the law are if an asset is put to use for less than 180 days, or if an asset is put to use for 180 days or more. That was the word that was used. So put to use is very important, not date of acquisition. So one way we can say this entire column is useless. You don't have to even look at that. That doesn't make any difference to our calculations. But yes, date when it is put to use, that matters a lot. For each of them, we have to identify on the basis of the date when the assets were put to use, whether that asset was used during the previous year for more than 180 days or not. If the asset was used, here computer, whatever it is. First, let us look at number of days. Then we can come to the classification of assets and rates of depreciation. Let us look at the dates when the asset was put to use. First, find out less than 180 days or more than 180 days. 1st October 2019, the asset was put to use. So October, November, December, January, February and March. Definitely 183 days. If it is 1st October, 183 days would be the number of days for which the asset is put to use. So greater than 180 days. So greater than 180 days is what this is. 8th October. See, when 1st October itself is 183 days. 8th October definitely will be less than 180 days. And another important mistake that students do in the examination is they try to mix up the residential status provisions with depreciation provisions, because they remember 182 days in residential status for particularly determination of residential status of individual. Please remember and don't mess that up. Residential status determination, that was 182 days. This is 180 days. So that is completely different. This is completely different. Don't try to swap them or mix them up. That will cost a lot of marks. So be careful while remembering and applying the provisions. So 1st October is definitely more than 180 days. 8th October is less than 180 days. Once again, 1st October means more than 180 days. 1st April definitely is more than 180 days. 1st April once again more than 180 days. Laptop, whatever it is, 8th October means less than 180 days. So there are two assets which are less than 180 days. Remaining assets are all more than 180 days, which means they are eligible for full depreciation. So all that we need to do is apply relevant rate of depreciation and calculate it. That's all. Let us look at item by item, one by one. Computer including computer software, 35,000. So what is the relevant rate of depreciation? Multiply 35,000 with 40%. Done. Computer UPS, less than 180 days. That means that is only 20%. So let us consider that computer UPS also part of computer's block of assets. Computer printer, this can be debatable. Some people may consider it as plant and machinery and give 15%. Because it is related to computer only, it can be also categorized together with computer, no problem. Just any printer is not computer printer, so we have to be careful with the specifics of the case. For example, if there is a let us say Pragati printers is there and they have huge printers, that is what their business is. For them also will that be part of computers? No, for them it will be plant and machinery. Here this printer is exclusively attached to the computer, so we can consider that also as part of computer. So computer does not mean only UPS. Separately, only CPU is computer, monitor is computer or not, we don't have to get the doubts. Entire set is computer. Computer, which is CPU also, desktop also, it's whatever, keyboard also, mouse also, any other accessories also, UPS also, printer also, scanner also, all of them which is a setup related to a computer can be considered as computer. There is no problem in that. So let us consider it like computer only, so let us take 40%. Some others have taken it at 15% also. That is also not wrong. That is their interpretation, no problem. Either way it can be done. Then fourth asset is books. Books 13,000. See, just to confuse you, he will give unnecessary information. Annual publications of 12,000 are there, which are included in this anyway. So this other than the annual publications are of 12,000. Annual publications how much, books how much, we don't care. Books means books, that's all. So this information is useless completely. So books means books. Rate of depreciation is only one, that is 40%. Same block, 40% block. All of them actually come under the description of plant and machinery, including books. So all of them are 40% block so far. Now there is another block that is related to office furniture. Office furniture is not same block, but yes, we know the rate of depreciation for furniture, that is 10%. Multiply that, 10%. And then laptop is also same original block, that is computers block, 40% block we can call it. And problem is, it is used for less than 180 days. So when it is used for less than 180 days, it will be eligible for only 20% depreciation instead of 40%. So just do this calculation, whatever is the total, that is going to be the final answer. Do this calculation. 35,000 into 40%, 8,500 into 20%, 12,500 into 40%, 13,000 into 40%, 3 lakhs into 10%, 43,000 into 20%. So check the steps. 35,000 into 40%, 14,000. Then 8,500 into 20%, that is 1,700. 12,500 into 40%, that is 5,000. So what is the total of this? Just calculate that. You can do it by using M plus also. $8,500, 43,000, both are having 20%. So you can take like that also. Then 35,000, 12,500, 13,000, all are 40%. M plus 3 lakhs into 10% M plus. So final answer is 64,500. That's all. That's what was asked. How much is the depreciation that can be claimed by this Mr. Dhawal? That's it. That is how we have to calculate depreciation using the relevant provisions carefully. What is actual cost is important. What are the rates of depreciation applicable? Important. The dates when it is put to use is important, because that will tell us the number of days the asset was put to use during the previous year. That is important. And also whether the amounts are paid by account pay check or not, that is also important. If not given, we assume that it is paid by any mode other than cash. That is better to assume like that. Same way, various aspects when there is a change in the ownership, how to split the depreciation claim between predecessor and successor is also important. These are various aspects related to depreciation. And look at one more question which is also there in the essay material. Mr. Gama, a proprietor, started a business of manufacture. See, when this is given, we should have our attention on that. Why? If it is not given, don't assume and all. Additional depreciation is there. Chartered accountant cannot claim additional depreciation and all, because it is not manufacture, it is a service. Same way earlier, Sai Limited, Shirdi Limited, we don't know what they do. We don't have to assume they are in manufacturing. If it is given in the question, yes, it is already given in the question that this person is in the business of manufacture of tires and tubes, whatever that is used for motor vehicles. When he started the business on 1/1/2019, that also we don't care. The manufacturing unit was set up on 1/5/2019. That's what matters, because it was set up during our previous year. He commenced his manufacturing operations on 1/6/2019. 1/6/2019 is when the operations are commenced. The total cost of the plant and machinery installed in the unit is 120 crores. The said plant and machinery included, this 120 crores included a second-hand plant and machinery bought for 20 crores and new plant and machinery for scientific research related to the business of the SSC acquired at a cost of 15 crores. So what is the specialty of scientific research assets? They can be claimed as a full deduction under section 35, which we'll discuss separately. But we know that already capital expenditure also is allowed as deduction for scientific research. That is a variety of it. So will that be eligible for depreciation also once again? Definitely no. So what is required from us here in this question is compute the amount of depreciation. That's what we are supposed to calculate, allowable under section 32 of the Income Tax Act in respect of the assessment year 2021. Assume all assets were purchased by way of account by check as usual. So depreciation is what we are supposed to calculate. But be very clear, depreciation here can be classified into normal depreciation also, additional depreciation also. Don't mix that. Normal depreciation is different, additional depreciation is different. For example, this second hand plant and machinery which was purchased for 20 crores, will that be eligible for normal depreciation? Answer is yes, it will be eligible. But will that be eligible for additional depreciation? Then no. But you cannot say just because it is second hand I will not give depreciation at all. That would become wrong. That's what people do mistake. Don't do that. Second hand plant and machinery also eligible for normal depreciation. The problem comes only with additional depreciation for that. So be very clear about the segregation of normal depreciation and additional depreciation. Because the unit has commenced operations on 1/6/2019, definitely the assets are all put to use for more than 180 days. That is very clear, right? Now let us take normal depreciation. How much normal depreciation can be claimed? That is quite simple. Because 120 crores is the total of the assets, which included scientific research assets also of 15 crores. First you have to exclude that. 120 minus 15. Why? Because that would be eligible for full deduction under separate section. It will not be eligible for depreciation also. Once again, same thing cannot be allowed as deduction for two times. So actual amount of assets which will be eligible for normal depreciation will be 105 crores. And you have to read the question carefully. The said plant and machinery included, he said, some second hand plant and machinery also and new plant and machinery for scientific research also. So this 120 already includes 15. So we have excluded it. So 105 is the depreciable amount. Naturally, what is the rate of depreciation for plant and machinery? We are talking about plant and machinery. That means 15%. So 15% on 105 crores will be how much? That is the normal depreciation. 15.75 crores. That is a normal depreciation, but that is not the answer. Still there is additional depreciation that has to be found out. How much will be the additional depreciation? Additional depreciation can be calculated only on the new plant and machinery. Once again, 120 is there, 15 to anyway gone, that is neither eligible for normal nor eligible for additional. It is not eligible for any further deduction. Already it is fully deductible under section 35. So forget about that 15 anyway. From 105 also you have to reduce 20 because that is not eligible for additional depreciation since it is second hand. So how much is eligible for additional depreciation? 85 crores worth of plant and machinery is eligible for additional depreciation. So applying 15% on 85 crores, we will get additional depreciation of 12.75 crores. 12.75 crores. Sorry. Additional depreciation is not 15%, no? Additional depreciation is how much? 20%. Percentages we have to be clear. Normal depreciation is according to normal rates. Additional depreciation is separate, right? So additional depreciation is available at 20%. That means 17 crores of additional depreciation is available. So total of these two, normal depreciation 15.75 plus additional depreciation of 17 crores. total will be final answer 32.75 crores. 32.75 crores. Then that is the answer, but just for understanding purposes, what will be the written down value that goes to the beginning of next year? Naturally, we have to take 105 only. That is the only thing which is other than section 35. So 105, as we already seen in the actual cost definition, if there is any asset which is used for scientific research, the actual cost of that shall be taken as nil. That is what you have to apply here. So 105 is the actual cost of other assets, whatever it is, old, new, doesn't matter. 105 minus 32.75. So the closing written down value will be 72.25. That will become the opening written down value for next year. So point to note here is depreciation is depreciation under section 32, whether it is normal or additional. Total depreciation that can be claimed as deduction under section 32 will be 32.75 crores. The written down value after the deduction of 32.75 crores from 105 crores will be 72.75 crores, which goes to next year as opening WDV. That's what we have to understand. Here, percentage of rate of depreciation normally is 15%, since it is put to use for more than 180 days. Percentage of additional depreciation is always 20. And we don't know whether this Gamma has set up his business in the backward areas of Telangana, Bihar, Bengal or Andhra Pradesh. So, you don't have to assume such things. Normal depreciation is anyway 15%, additional depreciation is anyway 20%. Why? Once again, because the assets were put to use for more than 180 days. But additional depreciation is not available on second hand machinery. So, we have to calculate additional depreciation only on 85 crores. 20% on 85 crores is 17 crores. The total depreciation is 32.75 crores. That is another question related to computation of depreciation applying the provisions of section 32. And we have to be thorough with the provisions. Once again, problems may or may not be appearing in the same manner. Problem may be any way asked. If we are thorough with the provision, then we will be able to apply that provision to the context of the problem that is facing us. So, being thorough with the provisions is always the most important step in learning and applying the Income Tax Act. Now, moving on to further discussion of special scenario, like earlier we would have observed, the normal things like depreciation and other things are applicable for all the companies except power sector companies. So, now what we are going to discuss is something which is applicable only to power sector undertakings. Only to power sector undertakings, this concept of terminal depreciation and balancing charge will apply. First of all, what is the speciality of these power sector undertakings? First speciality is that they don't have to claim depreciation only by WDV method, they can even claim depreciation by SLM method. That is one speciality. Second speciality is that they don't have to follow the block of assets concept. They can calculate depreciation asset by asset basis. On individual assets also they can calculate depreciation, which is not possible for any other organization. Only for power sector undertakings it is possible. But once again, it is not compulsory on the power sector undertakings also. They can choose this asset by asset straight line method of depreciation if they want to choose. If they wanted to follow the normal section 32 like any other organization, they are welcome. There is no problem. They can follow that normal rates only, normal percentages, normal methods only they can follow. But if they followed SLM method, then there are certain new things that will also get applicable to them. Calculation of depreciation will be not according to section 32 of the Income Tax Act, which we already know. It will be according to their own method, which will be straight line method, and asset by asset basis they will take the depreciation. We are not here to calculate that depreciation because that they will calculate according to their own methodology, not following 32. But what we are talking about is terminal depreciation and balancing charge. So the names themselves indicates terminal. Means it is not about when the asset is purchased or when the asset is used. We are not calculating depreciation here, that they will do. They would have done already. But what we are going to talk about and calculate here is when the asset is sold, then what is the treatment? That is the main point here related to terminal depreciation and balancing charge. And what are the conditions here? Check them one by one. First condition is, as usual, SC would have claimed depreciation as per straight line method. Second condition, depreciation is not allowed on block of assets but on individual assets. That's what we were talking about. They have chosen that. If they have chosen that, and if the asset has been sold, discarded, demolished, destroyed, etc., whatever happened during the previous year, all those things are just extensions. Simply speaking, sold. If the asset is sold during the previous year, then what happens? Any asset, we are not talking block of assets, any asset which is sold during the previous year, how the treatment should be there is what is prescribed here. Here there are three possibilities. Look at them very carefully, very important for MCQs particularly. Definite question can be expected from this. What are the three possibilities? One possibility is terminal depreciation. When would that be possible? When the money receivable on sale is less than the WDV of the asset already. Some people will think, we are talking about straight line method and why are we using the word WDV? Boss, straight line method is a method of depreciation. WDV method is a method of depreciation. WDV is not a method of depreciation. WDV means written down value, which is nothing but original cost of the asset minus depreciation. That is always WDV. The WDV method of depreciation is called like that because of it uses a percentage of rate on this WDV. So WDV method is not coming from WDV. WDV is not coming from WDV method. WDV method word itself has come from WDV. So every organization, irrespective of the method of depreciation, will have its own written down value. What is written down value? Cost minus depreciation. How they have calculated depreciation, that might change. But definitely cost minus depreciation is what is WDV, which is their book value, we can say, after providing the depreciation on the asset for many years. Now, that asset is sold and that money receivable on sale is less than the existing book value of the asset. So first let us understand, is it a loss or not? Of course, yes, it is a loss. It is a loss. So what should we do? We will call it as terminal depreciation. Loss, but it is called as terminal depreciation and that is fully allowed as business loss. That is allowed as deduction, no problem. But the name what we give is, it is terminal depreciation, not a capital loss or something. It is terminal depreciation when the money receivable on sale is less than WDV of the asset. That is why WDV of the asset minus money receivable on sale is what is terminal depreciation, and that is fully allowed as deduction as business loss. Then another possibility is there. Another possibility is that there is a possibility of balancing charge. Balancing charge. Here reverse happened. What is reverse? Money receivable on sale is more than WDV of the asset. That means there is a gain. But what type of gain it is? Subject to the maximum of accumulated depreciation. Subject to the maximum of accumulated depreciation only, we can call it balancing charge. To that extent, it will be treated as business income. When it is income, naturally it will be fully taxable. First one was not income. First one was loss, expenditure allowed as deduction. That is terminal depreciation. In PGBP, it is allowed as deduction. Second one is income. In PGBP only, as business income. When money receivable on sale is more than WDV of the asset, however, subject to the maximum of accumulated depreciation is very important condition. If, for example, the balancing charge is more than accumulated depreciation, to the extent of accumulated depreciation already provided only will be taxable as business income. Even you can understand this with common sense. Why so? What is accumulated depreciation? That is the depreciation that the organization has provided all these years by debiting it to P&L, by claiming it as deduction. Now what is happening by selling the asset? Reverse is happening. To the extent it was already debited to P&L, that much only we can credit to P&L. No. We cannot credit more than that. We cannot treat anything more than that as business income. Then what that becomes? That becomes short-term capital gain. By the way, as we discussed earlier, any depreciable asset will be always having capital gain also, loss also, but always that will be treated as a short term only, not long term. That's a very important point to note always. There will never be a long term capital gain or loss from the sale of depreciable assets. We are talking about a depreciated asset only. So when there is a gain arising over and above the original cost of the asset, then that will be called as short term capital gain. Now if you look at this formula type, money receivable on sale minus of WDV minus accumulated depreciation. If you observe this, what does it give us? WDV plus accumulated depreciation. What is WDV plus accumulated depreciation? That is nothing but cost of the asset, right? Cost of the asset minus depreciation is WDV. WDV plus accumulated depreciation is cost of the asset. So money receivable on sale minus cost of the asset is taxable under capital gains. So there is a possibility of both balancing charge and capital gains also when the sale proceeds exceed even the cost of the asset. On the other hand, if the sale proceeds exceed WDV but they do not exceed cost of the asset, then there will be only balancing charge. But if the sale proceeds do not exceed WDV, that's a loss definitely, but we don't call it loss, we call it terminal depreciation. That's a very, very important provision for particularly MCQ type of questions. Let us look at an example to understand this in a better manner. Look at this exercise or example number 1. X Electric Supply Company Limited, which is charging depreciation on, it's not strength line, it is straight line method. So let us call it SLM. Straight line method, it was charging depreciation already, whose actual cost of the asset is 20 lakhs, actual cost, and written down value is 18,72,300. First we should understand this. Because when actual cost was 20 lakhs and written down value was 18,72,300, how much depreciation would have been already provided on that asset? 18,72,300 if that is written down value. 1,27,700 depreciation would have been already provided. That's what is accumulated depreciation on that. And this company sells the assets during our previous year after using it for 2 years. We don't care how many years they used, what happened to them. Depreciation calculation is not our job here, that they are done already. Already in the book value of, in the books of accounts, their written down value of the assets is 1872,300. And after 2 years they sold, 5 years they sold, we don't care. But ultimately what we have to identify is what will be the tax treatment for the assessment year 2021 if the asset is sold for different scenarios. First scenario, if let us say asset is sold for 30,000 rupees only, means very less amount is there. Written down value is 18,72,300, that is the book value or written down value. It was sold for 30,000 means what will be the resultant here? What we call that? Terminal depreciation of 18,42,300 will arise in this scenario. 18,42,300 terminal depreciation will be there because it's all loss. Everything has to be written off now since it was sold for a very low amount of 30,000. Remaining is all loss, but we don't call it loss. What we call that? We call that terminal depreciation. That is terminal depreciation of 18,42,300. Then second scenario, what if exactly if the asset is sold for 18,72,300, then nothing happens. There is no terminal depreciation, there is no balancing charge, there is no capital gain, nothing is there. So what will be the treatment? No treatment. C. What if the asset is sold for 19 lakhs, which is more than the written down value of the asset? That means there is a possibility of balancing charge. How much is the balancing charge in this case? 57,700 is the balancing charge, and you have to make sure this balancing charge does not exceed the already accumulated depreciation. It did not exceed. So 57,700 can be called as balancing charge. And what happens to that? That will be taxable fully as business income. That is a treatment for that scenario. Then the fourth scenario, if the asset is sold for 21,50,000. Now you understand this. 21,50,000 means the asset is sold for a price which is more than cost. Asset original cost was 20 lakhs only. So whatever is the amount in excess of the cost of the asset, that is 1,50,000, that can be considered as short term capital gain. So there is a short term capital gain of how much? 1,50,000, which is nothing but money receivable minus original cost of the asset. So money receivable is 21,50,000, original cost of the asset was 20 lakhs. 1,50,000 is short term capital gain. But still there is balancing charge also. Why? Because to the extent of accumulated depreciation already provided on the asset, that will be chargeable to tax now as business income. Once again with the same logic. Earlier it was debited, earlier it was claimed as deduction. Now reversal happened means it becomes taxable as business income. That is what the name we give it is balancing charge. How much will be that? That will be exactly the amount of accumulated depreciation on these assets so far. That was 1,27,700 becomes taxable as what? As PGBP, as balancing charge. Under the head of PGBP only it will be taxable. But 1,50,000 will be taxable under the head of capital gains. So that is about special case of power sector undertakings which claim already depreciation according to their own method, that is straight line method, on asset by asset basis according to their own rates of depreciation. Because there is no rates that section 32 has prescribed, they will follow. They will not follow. That is their choice, by the way, not that they have to follow this or that. The choice is given to power sector undertakings while claiming depreciation. But while they are selling those assets, then the treatment becomes important. That depends upon what is the sale proceeds. If the sale proceeds even exceed the original cost of the asset, the excess of sale proceeds over and above the cost of the asset will be treated as short-term capital gain, and to the extent of accumulated depreciation already provided on them will now become balancing charge. If the sale proceeds are more than WDV of the asset but less than cost of the asset, then the difference between sale proceeds and WDV of the asset will be treated as balancing charge only. That was case C in our example. What if the sale proceeds are less than WDV of the asset, like case A? Then whatever the loss that is arising out of that will be treated as business loss, shall be allowed as full deduction under the head of PGBP. In case A, we had that 18,42,300, but we don't call it loss, we call it terminal depreciation. That is the special provision related to power sector undertakings. Now moving on to another point, though we will discuss this again in the chapter of set off and carry forward, but we should know this as a continuation of depreciation discussion. Very important one, that is unabsorbed depreciation. As we know already, depreciation is compulsory. It is not just optional to the SSC, it is compulsory. We know that. When the SSC compulsorily tries to give a deduction under section 32 of depreciation allowance, imagine his profits are not sufficient to absorb the depreciation. Let us say his profits before depreciation are 10 lakhs. Depreciation itself is 15 lakhs, let us say. That means what? There is still an unabsorbed depreciation of 5 lakhs. The profits could absorb only 10 lakhs depreciation. 5 lakhs is loss, of course. It is loss. That loss is what we can call that as is unabsorbed depreciation. So unabsorbed depreciation has to be separately calculated in addition to the calculation of business loss. Sometimes it may so happen, let us say an SSC has already a loss of 10 lakhs, right? And there is a depreciation other than that loss of another 5 lakhs. Then also how much will be unabsorbed depreciation? 5 lakhs. While he shows the PGBP income, he will show 15 lakhs loss, no doubt, because that is the total loss. However, in this 15 lakhs, there is a segregation to be done for normal business loss, which is 10 lakhs, and unabsorbed depreciation has to be segregated and it has to be maintained as a record separately. Why is that? Because that has a separate special treatment under section 32(2). That is why. What is that special treatment? Let us look at that one by one. First point. Depreciation of the previous year is first deductible from PGBP in the relevant assessment year. We know that already. There is nothing special. But what if the depreciation allowance is not fully deductible under the head of PGBP because of absence or inadequacy of profits? Then what? Then the unabsorbed depreciation can be deductible from the incomes chargeable under other heads of income for the same assessment year except salaries. So this is a kind of provision related to set off. Unabsorbed depreciation is a loss basically that can be set off against any other income if the SC has, other than salaries. For example, if the SC has other sources, income from other sources of say 20 lakhs in this case, what he can do? Definitely this 5 lakhs unabsorbed depreciation can be set off against that 20 lakhs within the same year. Within the same year it can be set off. Except salaries head. If SC has salary positive income and unabsorbed depreciation cannot be set off against salaries. So these are the provisions related to set off. So what about the provisions related to the set off of business losses? All these things we will discuss once again in the chapter of set off and carry forward anyway. But because we are particularly focusing on depreciation here, first we should understand what is unabsorbed depreciation. Unabsorbed depreciation is that which could not be already absorbed and could not be deducted under the head of PGBP because of absence or inadequacy of profits. Then such unabsorbed depreciation can be set off against any other head of income except salaries during the same assessment year. The story is not over. If the depreciation allowance is still unabsorbed, it can be carried forward to the subsequent assessment years by the same SSE and set off against any other head of income, once again other than salaries. So, set off of unabsorbed depreciation is also possible against any other head of income other than salaries. Carry forward is also possible and then it can be set off also against any other head of income other than salaries. But very importantly, why unabsorbed depreciation becomes important is there is no time limit for number of years it can be carried forward. See, normally the business losses can be carried forward for a maximum period of 8 years. That is the maximum period for which business losses can be carried forward and set off. But for unabsorbed depreciation, there is no time limit at all. Means infinitely this can be carried forward and set off in future with any profits in future. So, no time limit is fixed for carrying forward of unabsorbed depreciation. It can be carried forward for indefinite period if necessary. And second point is, these unabsorbed depreciations can be set off against any income under any head, any income under any head, but once again, except salaries. So, current year also, they can be set off against any other income under any head except salaries. Even carried forward and brought forward, unabsorbed depreciation also can be set off against any income under any head except salaries, and it can be carried forward indefinitely. That is the speciality of unabsorbed depreciation. That is another reason why depreciation calculation also becomes important. Normally business loss calculation is one part. Unabsorbed depreciation is very useful in future years for setting off that unabsorbed depreciation to reduce future profits. That is why a separate track of unabsorbed depreciation has to be maintained by the SSEs. That helps them in carrying forward that unabsorbed depreciation indefinitely and then setting it off against any other positive incomes of any head except salaries. And what is the general priority which is used set for set off? Once again, we are not going to apply them now because the topic of depreciation is there. As an extension of that, we are talking about unabsorbed depreciation. Core aspect related to unabsorbed depreciation is that first and foremost important thing, it can be set off against any other head of income other than salaries. Second important thing is it can be carried forward indefinitely and set off against any other head of income except salaries. That should be remembered. We will use that once again in the chapter of set off and carry forward of losses. But what should be the general priority? First priority should be current year's depreciation. We have unabsorbed depreciation, so first I will deduct it. No. Then we have to take brought forward losses, that is business losses. Then unabsorbed depreciation. So why is that? For the benefit of SC only. Why? Because Brought forward losses can be carried forward only for 8 years. There is no time limit for unabsorbed depreciation. So this can wait. One way we can also say unabsorbed depreciation can be used in the sequence of set off at the end. Once again, because it can wait. There is no time limit for it. If not absorbed this year also, we can carry forward to next year. Okay, then also not absorbed, no problem. Next year. Indefinitely it can be carried forward. So we don't have to be in hurry to deduct or set off that unabsorbed depreciation. First we have to provide current year's depreciation, which is anyway according to section 32. Then set off of brought forward business losses. Then unabsorbed depreciation has to be set off. Of course, we will apply these things in the chapter of set off and carry forward. But right now, just understand the key aspect of unabsorbed depreciation. The speciality of that is it can be carried forward indefinitely, unlike the normal business losses which can be carried forward only for 8 years. That has to be remembered. The relevance of unabsorbed depreciation will definitely come once again in the chapter of set off and carry forward of losses. Now after section 32 series, in which we have normal depreciation, additional depreciation, unabsorbed depreciation, terminal depreciation, like that, let us look at one more special provision related to the backward areas of certain states, and we know those states also. This section is 32 AD. When any investment in the new plant and machinery is done in the backward areas of certain states, of course they are already eligible for depreciation, we know that. Of course they are already eligible for additional depreciation also, that too at higher rates, we know that. In addition to that, they have a further tax benefit deduction under section 32 AD. These are what popularly people call tax incentives to be given for backward areas where investment is encouraged. And who is the eligible SSE? Naturally, manufacturing organization, not other software companies and all. We are talking about SSE should be starting a manufacturing organization. When should the investment be done in the plant and machinery? Between 2015 to 31st March 2020. So this is our last year. Our previous year ends on 31st March 2020. So if somebody has done some investment during 1920 also, he would be eligible definitely for 32 AD. For our convenience purposes, we can call this as investment allowance. Let us call this as investment allowance. Don't call it as depreciation. Just because section 32 is there, 32 AD is not depreciation. It is investment allowance, which is an additional deduction over and above the deduction of depreciation allowed under section 32 anyway. This is over and above that. And we know what are the states and in which the notified backward areas are listed. Same states: Andhra Pradesh, Bihar, Telangana or West Bengal. These are the 4 states. Same states where the additional depreciation was also available instead of 20% at the rate of 35%. That was additional depreciation. This is not depreciation. This is investment in new plant and machinery. So we can call this as investment allowance as a deduction. Deduction only this is, not just a depreciation. Then a question might come, sir, what is the difference? Anyway, both are deducted from profits now. There is a lot of difference. Why? Because if you calculated depreciation under section 32, whether it is normal or additional, you will reduce it from the cost of the asset so that you will get WDV, which will go to next year as opening WDV. Again, the story continues. But investment allowance is not reduced from the cost of the asset. It is only given as deduction, that's all. So understand this even from accounting point of view also logically. Where will depreciation come normally? Debit side of P&L account. For our tax purposes, let us call it as deduction. Again, it will be reduced from the cost of asset, right? That is what is the second treatment of depreciation normally in accounts. Yes, that is what is the treatment in law also, in income tax law also, treatment wise. Computation methodology wise it is different, but logic wise it is same. Cost of asset minus depreciation is what is WDV. Again the story continues to next year like this. So depreciation, whether normal or additional, will be reduced from the cost of the asset. But investment allowance is not reduced from the cost of the asset. However, it is allowed as deduction, no problem. One treatment only here, not 2 treatments. That is an important point we have to keep in mind. So question is, how much of additional deduction is available? 15% of the actual cost of the new asset that is acquired and installed in the previous year. That's what is allowed as additional investment allowance if somebody starts a manufacturing company in the backward areas of the 4 states of Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Bihar and West Bengal. That is 15% of the actual cost of new asset. Once again, new. New means not second hand. So, first point is, all the conditions what we already know related to additional depreciation will apply here also. Can a person like start a factory and then he purchases a Rolls-Royce car for 4 crores and then claims depreciation on that, additional depreciation on that? Can he claim? No. Can he claim investment allowance on that? No. We are talking of what? Not any other things like cars, vehicles, aircrafts, furniture. No. We are talking about plant and machinery. It should be that which is installed in the factory, not in office, not in the guest house, not for luxury like cars. No, those are all not eligible. The one which is used and which is installed for the purpose of manufacture or production of any article or thing, that will be eligible for investment allowance also and additional depreciation also. Normal depreciation is a different story. That is eligible. That is there on all types of assets at the prescribed rates. But additional depreciation as well as investment allowance, conditions wise both are more or less same. So this investment allowance also is available to the SSC. Any SSC, means not necessarily a company, any SSC can claim this investment allowance if that SSC has invested in the plant and machinery of any factory which was set up in the notified backward areas of 4 specified states. That's it. Now, what if the new asset is sold or otherwise transferred? See, he has purchased the asset, claimed a fantastic 15% deduction in 1 year, and within 5 years, let us say, he has sold those assets. So, what should we do? Common sense. Whatever the deduction allowed earlier now becomes taxable. That will be deemed to be the income of the SSC in the year in which the asset was sold or otherwise transferred. Of course, it will be taxable under PGBP because earlier deduction was given under PGBP. Reversal of deduction simply. Why the deduction was given? To encourage those people to start new manufacturing factories in backward areas of 4 states. They have done that. Very good. They claim a deduction. Very good. But within 5 years they sold them. No, not good. So whatever deduction they claimed earlier now becomes taxable. That's a simple point. But what is exception here? Otherwise, except in connection with amalgamation or demerger or reorganization of business, that is okay. That cannot be considered as really sold. If it is transferred to another company, another SSC by way of amalgamation or demerger, that is okay. Then this taxability will not arise because once again, as good as the income tax law treats, in essence, the transferor and transferee in the transactions of amalgamation and demerger as one and the same. So there is no much of distinction that the income tax law makes between those two people when it comes to the essence of the transaction. But that is why when there is an amalgamation or a demerger and this newly set up organization has transferred the assets by virtue of amalgamation or demerger, we don't have to worry. That is okay. That is not reversible. That means the deduction is not reversible. In other words, this taxability or deemed to be the income of the SSC shall not apply in that case. Under normal circumstances, if anybody claimed a deduction of 15% under section 32 AD and then within 5 years he has sold those assets, then whatever deduction they claimed earlier shall now become taxable. Simple. That is the provision related to section 32 AD, that is investment allowance. Now let us look at one of the examples related to this. Mr. X set up a manufacturing unit in Warangal in the state of Telangana. We have to assume that Warangal is in the backward areas districts, whatever that list may be. You don't need to buy out that list. Please don't try to buy out that list. It is there in the essay material, but it is not required. So it has to be definitely in one of the backward areas of Telangana. Ideally, we can assume that here. On 1/6/2019 during the previous year, okay. But what we are interested in is the amounts. And it has invested, it means he actually. So he has invested 30 crores in new plant and machinery, that is 30 crores on 1/6/2019. Further, invested 25 crores in the plant and machinery on 1/11/2019, okay. Out of which 5 crore was second hand plant and machinery, though one more point is there. Compute the depreciation allowable under section 32. Is Mr. X entitled for any other benefit in respect of such investment? If so, what is the benefit available? So that is 32 AD, which will be available if that Warangal is a backward area notified by the government. Of course, it is in the state of Telangana, which is one of the 4 states to which 32 AD is applicable. So, we'll come to that later. First, let us find out normal depreciation and additional depreciation. First of all, let us take this 30 crores, which is original plant and machinery purchased on 1/6/2019, and that means it is put to use for more than 180 days. So 30 into 15%. 30 into 15%. Keep it aside. That comes to 4.5. Then further he has invested 25 crores in the plant and machinery on 1/11/2019, of which 5 crores was second hand plant and machinery. See, for normal depreciation, second hand, first hand doesn't matter. Eligibility wise, 25 crores is eligible for normal depreciation, but instead of 15%, it will be eligible for only 7.5% since the assets are put to use for less than 180 days. So how much is the total of normal depreciation here? 25 into 7.5% means 6.375 crores is normal depreciation that you can claim. But that is normal only, not the entire depreciation under section 32. We need to also calculate additional depreciation. Now what about additional depreciation for the backward areas of the notified 4 states? Additional depreciation available is 35% or 17.5% as the case may be. So recalculate that also. 30 crores into 35% plus not 25, 20 only. Why? 5 crores was second hand. Second hand machinery is not eligible for additional depreciation, though it is eligible for normal depreciation. So 20 crores into 17.5%, which is half. Of course, the remaining 17.5% can be claimed in the next year. Don't worry about that, and we are not bothered about that. But it can be claimed in next year. So 30 into 35%, 20 into 17.5%. Total is 14 crores. Additional depreciation that comes out. So total depreciation under section 32 is how much? 20.375 crores. This is depreciation under section 32. So how much will go to next year if at all? 30 plus 25 minus 20.375. 34.625 crores only will go to next year as opening WDV. Of course, this 20 into 17.5 can be claimed next year also. That the story continues for the next year. We are not bothered about that. So current year, how much is the depreciation under section 32? 20.375 crores. Is there any other benefit that the SSC can claim? Definitely yes. What is that? That is section 32 AD. 32 AD is also available for new plant and machinery. But here there is no distinction of 180 days. This is not depreciation. Don't apply everything everywhere. This is just a normal deduction of 15%. That's all. New assets 15% will be available as deduction under 32 AD. So 30 crores plus 20 crores, accepting that 5 crores second hand. 50 into 15%. Additional 7.5 crores deduction can be claimed under section 32 AD. This is not depreciation. This is investment allowance. Deduction can be claimed, but it cannot be reduced from the WDV of the assets. This is not depreciation. But yes, benefit wise, the deduction that can be claimed by the SSC for 32 section will be 20.375 crores, and under 32 AD it shall be 7.5 crores. These are the points related to depreciation. With that, we can conclude the entire topic of section 32 series, let us call it. We have normal depreciation, we have additional depreciation, we have terminal depreciation for power generation companies, we have unabsorbed depreciation, at least theoretical provision so far, and we have investment allowance of 32 AD. Though it is not depreciation, it is also in the 32 series. Now moving on to very important another section is expenditure on scientific research. That is section 35. We know this section already, just name wise, and we know the speciality of that section also. Under this section, capital expenditure also can be allowed as deduction. That we know. Same thing we are going to know, but it is not the only thing. There are so many other points also under section 35, which we will discuss now. Okay, what is scientific research was defined by law as any activities for the extension of knowledge in the fields of natural or applied sciences, including agriculture, animal husbandry or fisheries. So natural sciences or applied sciences, whatever it is, that is called scientific research. We don't need to really worry about what is scientific research. It will be given in the question that it is scientific research. So scientific research means research into the field of sciences, as simple as that. But our job or our interest area is deduction. How the deduction amount will be there in respect of different types of expenses related to scientific research, they can be classified as under. At a broader level, we can look at them as 1. The revenue expenditure incurred by the SC himself. 2. Contribution made to the outsiders. 3. The capital expenditure incurred by the SSC himself. And 4. The very special situation, expenditure incurred on in-house research and development by specified companies. So this is the scientific research related deduction, not just capital expenditure that we know. In addition to that, there are some more very important points to be noted under section 35. Let us start with them one by one. 35.1.1. Revenue expenditure incurred by the SSC towards scientific research, will it be allowed as deduction? Do we need a separate section for that? Anyway, revenue expenditure is allowed as deduction, normally also, no problem. Of course, it will be allowed as deduction here also. So, full deduction is allowed for revenue expenditure on scientific research incurred during the previous year if such scientific research is related to the own business. Naturally, research on in-house research will be related to the own business only. Dr. Reddy Laboratories is not going to do any research related to leather business. It is going to do research in pharma industry only. Like that, any business will do research in its own business, then only the revenue expenditure is allowed as deduction. But that is not the speciality here. The speciality here is, if any specific revenue expenditure, what is specific? Materials or wages or salaries to employees, that's all. And very important point to note here, exception is perquisites to employees, which is not allowed as deduction if it was incurred during 3 years immediately preceding the date of commencement of business. That shall be allowed as deduction also in the year of commencement of business. Now, what is the speciality in this? Looks like normal? No, it is not normal. If you remember, one of the general principles of deductibility of an expenditure is that expenditure should be incurred during the previous year, and any expenditure incurred prior to the commencement of business is normally not allowed as deduction. You remember that? That was not allowed as deduction normally. That is why scientific research is a separate variety situation where general principles are violated. For what? Definitely for encouraging scientific research, giving them more and more benefits. So what is the benefit that scientific research organizations can get if they incur some expenditure on in-house scientific research is, of course, whatever expenditure incurred during the previous year will be anyway allowed as deduction. We don't need a special attention to that. But in addition to that, if any scientific research expenditure other than perquisites is incurred, revenue expenditure prior to the commencement of the business, up to 3 years prior to the commencement of the business, whatever such revenue expenditure incurred during those 3 years immediately preceding the date of commencement of business shall be allowed as deduction in the year of commencement of business. Entire amount will be one shot allowed as deduction in the year of commencement of business. That is a variety. Previous year's expenses are anyway allowed. Over and above that, in the year of commencement of business, any revenue expenditure incurred prior to the date of commencement of business for a period of 3 years also shall be allowed as deduction. When that 3 years thing will apply to us? Naturally, when the SSC starts the business during our previous year, then only that will become relevant. For example, SSC already started business 4 years back. It's gone. Already he would have claimed a deduction of whatever revenue expenditure he incurred prior to the commencement of business already. So that will not be relevant. So naturally, if at all we have to apply this provision in the problem should contain such a situation where the SSC would have commenced business during our previous year. Then what we will do? Of course, all the revenue expenditure incurred during the previous year we will give as deduction. In addition to that, we will also give deduction related to the revenue expenditure of 3 years immediately preceding the date of commencement of business in our previous year, which is the year in which the business was commenced. That is first scenario. Revenue expenditure, very normal thing. Only thing there to remember is 3 years period. Other than that, there is nothing else. But second one, once again, is a very important table. You should remember this table. You have to by heart it, no option. When there are rates given, when there are certain things, percentages given, you have to remember that. But what is the case here? Understand that first of all. Is it an expenditure? In this case, no. First case was revenue expenditure. Second case is not expenditure, it is contribution. Okay, shall we call it donation? No problem. You call it donation also. You call it contribution. You call it some money given. Doesn't matter. Whatever the name you call. Simply speaking, it is not the expenditure incurred by the SSC, but it is a sum of amount that is given by the SSC to somebody else. Who is that somebody? Somebody, whoever that may be. But this is not in-house scientific research expenditure. That is for sure. So this can be considered as donations to, contributions to some other scientific research organizations. But here main point to note is, in this case, there is no need that scientific research is related to business of the SSC. It doesn't matter. Whether that scientific research is related or unrelated to the business of the SSC, anybody can give donation and claim this deduction. Somebody having a kirana shop can contribute to IIT and get a deduction, no problem. That can be done. Kirana shop has nothing to do with IIT, but still they can claim deduction because this section gives them deduction. From the head of PGBP, anybody who has business income can claim deduction under this section 35, 1, 2 and 3. We don't need that further subsections and all much. 35, 1 you can say in general. But what is the amount of deduction? Here, whatever the amount of contribution is made, that is allowed as deduction normally. But look at the variety here. Sometimes there is a weighted deduction also on the actual contribution. Means, taking first example, an approved scientific research association is what to which the SSC has given some donation. Of course, what approved scientific research association will do? It will undertake scientific research. Is it related to the business of SSC? Not required. Whether related also, unrelated also, doesn't matter. Somebody just has donated, contributed some amount to an approved research association for undertaking scientific research. He gets 150% weighted deduction, which means what? If he contributes 1 lakh rupees, he will get a deduction of 1,50,000 rupees. How is it possible, sir? Law says, sir. When the law says anything is possible. Normally, common sense says, if you spend 1 lakh, you will get a deduction of 1 lakh maximum, right? But no, here, if you donated 1 lakh, you will get a deduction of 1,50,000 to encourage donations. Basically, this is all to encourage such contributions. The Law Income Tax Act has given very liberal deductions under this section. Of course, they are all going to be discontinued from next year onwards, which we don't need to worry about it, because for our assessment year 2021, previous year 1920, these weighted deductions are still applicable. But this is the last year, unfortunately. Fine. What happens in future, we'll see in future. But right now, 150% of the amount so contributed can be claimed as deduction if SSC contributes an amount to an approved research association for undertaking scientific research. These names are important. Approved research association. If that is a word, 150%. On the other side, if it is an approved university, college or other institution for the use of scientific research, once again related or unrelated doesn't matter, then also 150%. So look at that. Let us take 150% all one shot. Contribution to a national laboratory or university or IIT or a specified person with a specific direction that some shall be used for scientific research under a program approved on this behalf, 150%. So once again, one point to be noted is, if some SSC says, oh, I have contributed to my friend who is a scientist and he is doing scientific research, I am claiming deduction. No sir, not possible like that. All these contributions will have a lot of procedural approvals that will be required. Because of we are only solving problems, we don't need to worry about them because those will happen in real life. But it is not just like that easy to say that, oh, I will donate something to somebody and I will get deduction. Not somebody. That somebody should be an approved research association or approved university, not any Tom, Dick and Harry university. Approved college, not every roadside college. And any other institution if it is approved naturally for the use of scientific research. Same way, if amount is made or donated to a national laboratory or any university or IIT or for a specified person with a specific direction that some shall be used for scientific research under a program approved in this behalf. So this one is not just a general donation to IIT also. Within IIT, within universities, within national laboratory, there are some approved programs and donation is made to that. Then also 150% deduction can be claimed. Once again, it is all about approved. That's what matters. And naturally, if a question gives that, we have to say it is approved. If it is not given, then we have to take an assumption that it is approved. But if it is given that it is not approved, then we cannot take an assumption that I am assuming it is approved because it is an university. No, not like that. Any of them to claim deduction under this section, that institution, whatever the name it may be, call it university, college, IIT, national laboratory, or any other institution or research association, whatever name you call it, all of them should be approved. Then a 150% deduction can be claimed by the SSC who has donated to those institutions. Then there are other two situations where deduction is given but only 100%. What are those two situations? We can easily understand. First situation is that research in social sciences or statistical sciences. Not science means here natural science, physics, chemistry, no. Here we are talking about social sciences, even like economics for example, no problem. Somebody doing research in economics or statistics and SC donates that. Somebody means not somebody means that should be approved, obviously. Everything should be approved only. So if that is approved, that research program is approved, and that research is not related to the natural sciences or physical sciences, it is related to social sciences or statistical sciences, then deduction is only restricted to 100%. Same way, if contribution is made to a company to be used by that company for scientific research, then also deduction is available 100%. To whom? Is it to the company? Deduction? No sir. Company received donation. Whoever gave donation, for them the deduction will be available 100%. So that's what I said. Even a small merchant also, if he wants to, let us say, contribute to Bharat laboratories because they are working on, let us say, developing a vaccine for corona. If that program is approved program, and if somebody just contributes as his own, contribution to the overall project, 1 lakh rupees, they can claim 1 lakh rupees as deduction because at Bharat Labs, whatever it is a company. Somebody contributes to Dr. Reddy Laboratories, no problem. Good job. But that will be allowed as deduction, only 100% of donation. And by the way, we are not talking investment and all. We are not talking about shares purchased in Reddy Laboratories, no. We are talking donation, contribution, just like that, free. Somebody is just giving to other person for scientific research. So if that other person is a company, then the deduction is only 100%. If that other person is doing social or statistical research, then also the deduction is 100%. But if that other person to whom the donation is made is a approved scientific research association or a university, college, institution or IIT or national laboratory, then the deduction will be 150% of the amount of donation. That's it. This table you have to remember very well. Questions will come definitely on that. So, first scenario was different. that was the expenditure by the SSC himself. That is in-house scientific research expenditure but revenue expenditure. Second scenario is different. This is not expenditure first of all, this is donation or contribution made to somebody else, and weighted deduction is available according to the table that was mentioned there. And some special scenario may be there. For example, SSC has donated some amount to some approved institution, and after that the approval granted to those institutions was withdrawn. So should we say that the deduction is also withdrawn? Definitely it would not be fair. If the approval is there on the date of donation, that is enough. If after the date of making contribution, if the approval is withdrawn, what the SSC will do? He has donated in good faith that that particular organization is a approved organization. Approval was there. It's not just faith. Approval was there. But after the making of contribution, approval was withdrawn by government, let us say. That will not stop the deduction. That will still continue to give the SSC a right to get deduction under section 35(1). So 35(1) is about revenue expenditure and contribution made to outsiders. 35(2) is what we were talking earlier, capital expenditure incurred by the SSC himself. Capital expenditure also is allowed as deduction, which is another variety, big variety, because normally capital expenditure is not allowed as deduction. It will be eligible for depreciation. But here, if the SSC is a scientific research institution doing in-house scientific research, and any capital expenditure is incurred by the SSC for the scientific research of own business, that is fully deductible, which means 100% of capital expenditure is deductible. Of course, it will not be eligible for depreciation. Over and above that, already 100% deduction is claimed, means there is no relevance of depreciation for such assets. That we already have observed. So, what is the expenditure is incurred here? Capital expenditure on scientific research of own business. That means in-house research. But exceptions are there here. Point is, this capital expenditure availability of deduction is not there for purchase or acquisition of land. Land is not something on which you can claim this deduction. Of course, if you appreciate that point of depreciation also, land will never be eligible for depreciation also under section 32. In the entire table of section 32 discussion, was there land? Can land have depreciation? No. Why? Some people say because land has appreciation. That is absolutely nonsense. Land doesn't have appreciation also, depreciation also. Land is land which is there. It has infinite useful life. That is why the depreciation of the value of the asset over its useful life will not apply. Normal logic of depreciation is what? There is an asset which is purchased and which is useful for a limited period of time. So, in general, each year we have to charge a percentage of the original cost of the asset as depreciation. But how many years you will charge depreciation for land? Because its life is infinite. You cannot charge depreciation for the land. If at all you have to calculate also, it is not possible. That is why no depreciation for land, no deduction under 35(2) also for land. No. So capital expenditure what we are talking about here should be any capital expenditure other than land, excluding land. During previous year also is okay. During 3 years immediately preceding the date of commencement of business also is allowed as deduction in the year of commencement of business, just like revenue expenditure also. Capital expenditure incurred by the SSC towards acquisition of assets other than land prior to the date of commencement of business up to a period of 3 years immediately preceding the date of commencement of business shall be 100% allowed as deduction in the year of commencement of business. Exception once again is land. So revenue expenditure incurred during the previous year, fully allowed. Capital expenditure incurred during the previous year, fully allowed, except land. Revenue expenditure incurred 3 years immediately preceding the date of commencement, fully allowed as deduction in the year of commencement of business. Same way capital expenditure incurred in the period of 3 years immediately preceding the commencement of business also shall be allowed as deduction 100% in the year of commencement of business. But once again, while we take capital expenditure, we have to make sure we are not giving any deduction for purchase of land. No eligibility of deduction is there for acquisition of land, whether under 32 also, under 35 also, no deduction on land is available. That is always the logic we have to keep in mind. Of course, once already you claimed a deduction under 35(2), no deduction by way of depreciation can be admissible in respect of such assets which are used in scientific research. We know that already. At the time of taking actual cost also, we will take the actual cost of assets which are used for scientific research as nil. That means it is not eligible for depreciation. And while calculating depreciation also, we have to exclude those assets which are used for scientific research. For the purpose of computing depreciation, those assets have to be not considered. Why? Because they are anyway already claiming 100% deduction on those assets. There is no logic of giving some more deduction over and above this 100%. No. Further deduction is available by way of depreciation. That is the core essence of this section 35 under section 35(1) and 35(2). 35(1) had two sub-segments. One is the revenue expenditure of in-house scientific research. Second one was donations made to outsiders. 35(2) is related to capital expenditure incurred by the SSC himself. Now there is a very special scenario of 35(2)(ab). This section you have to remember. You cannot just write 35. Other things, even if you write just 35 also, no problem. Subsection does not matter much. But here 35(2)(ab) is a very important section by itself. That section number you have to remember. What is that? Expenditure on in-house research by specified companies. If any expenditure is done for in-house scientific research or development by specified companies, what is the deduction available under 35(2)(ab)? Instead of 100% which was available earlier under 35(1) or 35(2), deduction now for specified companies will be not 100%, 150% of the expenditure made. So naturally the question comes, what is a specified company? First of all, the SSC should be a company. This is where many people will once again do mistake. He will tell one name of the person will give. Suresh has started a scientific research company and all. Will he be eligible for 35(2)(ab)? No, sir. If Suresh has just started the business of scientific research, activity of scientific research, no. If he is an individual, no. No 35(2)(ab). So 35(2)(ab) can be claimed only by a company SSC, company only, no other, no partnership, no LLP, no individual, no HF, no other SSC can claim. Only company can claim 150% of expenditure as deduction instead of 100%. So what about normal individual? They can claim 100% anyway. For them it is there. 35(2) is there, 35(1) is there. No problem. But for 35(2)(ab) is not for individuals, others. It is for companies. And what type of company? Not any company. The company engaged in the business of biotechnology or in any business of manufacture or production of an article or thing not being an article specified in the list of 11th schedule. So manufacturing companies or companies engaged in the business of biotechnology will be eligible for this deduction. For scientific research, this deduction is not for any their regular expenses. No, regular expenses are other things anyway. We are talking about expenditure on scientific research by such companies which are in the business of biotechnology or in the business of manufacture or production of any article or thing. There is one exception given there. Not being an article or thing specified in the list of 11th schedule. So what is 11th schedule? Once again another doubt comes. Should we remember that? Should we by heart that? Not required. 11th schedule is one schedule where a lot of articles are mentioned. Means any research on those articles by the manufacturing companies on those articles will not be eligible for 35(2)(ab). That does not mean they are not eligible for 35. They are eligible for, everybody is eligible for 35 if they did any expenditure or donation for scientific research. But 35(2)(ab) is available for only those companies which are manufacturing something which was not specified in 11th schedule. So what will be there in 11th schedule? Generally it should be bad goods, right? Like for example tobacco products, like chocolates. Bad means not in all of them bad. Generally not so important for life. Like soft drinks, carbonated drinks, soda, manufacturing, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, doing lot of research. No problem, let them do. They will not get 135(2)(ab), they will not get. So those things, like cosmetics, those things are all there in 11th schedule. You don't need to remember them. Just which are in 11th schedule, which are not in 11th schedule is not our testing point. Our testing point is If a company is manufacturing something which is not in 11th schedule, it is eligible for 35(2)(ab). That is our important point. Or if a company is engaged in the business of biotechnology, that is eligible for 35(2)(ab). What is the speciality of 35(2)(ab)? Instead of 100%, which is normally eligible under 35(1) or 2, here 150% of the expenditure made can be claimed as deduction. What type of expenditure? It can be of capital nature or revenue nature. But look at this. Except purchase of land or buildings. This is a very important twist point once again. Why? Because earlier also for capital expenditure, land was accepted. That is okay. Land anyway will never get any deduction, so we are not bothered about that. Buildings is the twist point. If any asset like building is purchased by a biotechnology company, will that be eligible to claim 150% deduction under 35(2)(ab)? Answer is no, because building was also excluded under 35(2)(ab). That does not mean building was excluded under 35(2). In 35(2) only land was excluded. 35(2)(ab) land and buildings are excluded. Which means what? Very important point. The cost of building is eligible for 100% deduction, but not 150%. It is eligible for 100% deduction, no problem, but not for 150% under 35(2)(ab). That's a very important twist point. Of course, land is never eligible under any section. Any deduction is not available on land. That we know already. And of course, like procedural things, research must be approved by the Secretary, the Department of Scientific and Industrial Research. Approved research only will be there always. Anybody cannot say I am doing research, so I am sitting in the office and I cannot claim that I have done a lot of scientific research and I am claiming deduction under 35(2) or 35(2)(ab). Those things will not be acceptable. We are talking serious approvals and lot of procedures in real life which will be required to claim these deductions. So claiming deduction under section 35 is not going to be that easy for everybody. It has to be claimed after following lots of procedures only. Because we are not outside world, we don't have to worry about them. We just need to know the law. What eligibility is there for a deduction is what we have to know. But reality is that these deductions are not that easy to claim. So, what are the deductions under section 35? One is the revenue expenditure incurred by the SSC for in-house scientific research. Second is contributions made by the SSC. Third is capital expenditure incurred by the SSC for in-house scientific research. Then the fourth one, the special one, 35(2)(ab), is expenditure incurred for in-house scientific research by specified companies which are in the business of biotechnology or in the business of manufacture or production of any article or thing, not being an article or thing specified in the list of 11th schedule. And buildings are available, are eligible for 100% deduction under 35(2), no problem, but not eligible for 150% deduction under 35(2)(ab). That's a very important point. Other than buildings and land, of course, any other capital expenditure, of course, used for scientific research. Capital expenditure does not mean, once again, car was purchased, I will claim deduction. No, that should be used for the purpose of research, and that expenditure should be approved. That research also should be approved research. Then only they can claim deduction of 150% under 35(2)(ab), whereas the normal revenue and capital expenditure will be allowed as deduction 100%, which is the amount of expenditure. Donations is altogether a different scenario. This is not in-house research. This is something which SSC with a big heart has donated or contributed to some other scientific research institutions in the country. According to the list given here, weighted deduction will be available to such contributions by the SSC. That is the essence of section 35. Now coming to another one more small point, though it is not relevant here, mostly it will be once again coming in the set off and carry forward. Same logic of unabsorbed depreciation will apply to the scientific research also. Means, if scientific research expenditure is there and sufficient profits are not there, there is unabsorbed scientific research expenditure, there is deficiency, then what should we do? It can be carried forward to next year. Then also there was no sufficient profits, then it can be carried forward to next year. How many years it can be carried forward? Naturally, indefinitely. Why? Because the treatment is same as it is in unabsorbed depreciation for unabsorbed scientific research expenditure also. Treatment is same for unabsorbed thing. We are not talking about current year. we are talking about carry forward and set off. Carry forward can happen any number of years is the point that we have to keep in mind. That's all. That is not going to be useful for us here, but definitely that will be useful in that chapter of set off and carry forward, where we will refer to that once again. Now look at an example related to section 35 to understand what will be the amount of deduction that can be claimed under section 35. This situation is related to Mr. A, who has furnished the following particulars for the previous year 1920. Compute the deduction allowable under section 35 of Income Tax Act for the assessment year 2021 while computing PGBP. See, one by one we have to just see that. What is the amount of deduction available? So let us take the amounts one by one. First one is amount paid to a notified approved Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, for scientific research. So it's an institute, right? Notified, approved Institute of Science, IIS, that is Bangalore, which is there also really, one of the best institutes in India for scientific research. 1 lakh amount is donated. Paid means donated. How much deduction can be claimed? How much deduction can be claimed? 150% deduction can be claimed because it is approved institution. Approved scientific research institution, 150% deduction can be claimed, which means 1,50,000 can be claimed as deduction. So 1,50,000 M plus. Once again, second point. Amount paid to IIT Delhi for an approved scientific research program. There also 150%. So there is 150% deduction here also. 150% of what? The amount that was donated. So 2,50,000 into 150% or into 1.5. 3,75,000 is allowed as deduction on this. 1,50,000 was allowed as deduction on this. 3,75,000 also M plus. Then 3. Amount paid to X Limited. Limited means a company registered in India which has its main object of scientific research and development, and it is approved by the prescribed authority. It is also approved. Any Tom, Dick and Harry company, we cannot just donate and claim deduction. It should be approved. It is given, it is approved. So very good. How much deduction can be claimed if donation is made to a company? Only 100%. So 4 lakhs can be claimed as deduction. 4 lakhs M plus. Then fourth point. Expenditure incurred on in-house research and development facility as approved by the prescribed authorities. Everything has to be approved. Then only deduction can be claimed. And this is Mr. A, by the way. So that has to be clear, first of all, also observed, because 35(2)(ab) is not going to be applicable to Mr. A. But other deductions he can claim under section 35, 1 or 2. That's okay. Let us look at the expenditure here. Revenue expenditure 3 lakhs. Is it allowed as deduction? No problem. Of course, 100%. Revenue expenditure is allowed as deduction. How much is revenue expenditure? 3 lakhs. Add that also. Then capital expenditure including the cost of acquisition of land of 5 lakhs. So this is not eligible for deduction. So how much will be eligible here? Only 2 lakhs 50,000 can be claimed as 100% deduction for capital expenditure because land is not eligible for deduction. So 2,50,000 also M plus. That's all. What is the total answer? Finally, if you do all the total of all those deductions in exam, you have to write them and just show the percentage and amount. Presentation you should know. But answer is what? 14 lakhs 75,000. That's it. That is the total deduction that you can claim under section 35. Such questions were asked in the exams earlier. They can be asked in the exams once again also. So practice these questions well. And most important than questions is the provisions. Read the provisions very carefully related to all the sections so far that we have covered in this chapter. Section 28, we have to read it carefully also. That will be useful later in solving bigger problems. And section 30, section 31, 32 and 32 AD, then 35, within 35, 35(1), 35(2), 35(2)(ab), all related to scientific research. So those have to be, the provisions have to be read, remembered. I suggest write them also, and then most importantly you have to understand them and remember them so that we can apply them when the appropriate respective problems related to them will appear. Actually speaking, the core two sections of this entire chapter of PGBP are these two, that is 32 and 35. So one way we can say the biggest or the most important segment of PGBP is done over. Remaining segment will be also there important, but as I said earlier, those will be more logical than provisional. These are provisional, right? Depreciation rates you cannot create. Scientific research expenditure deduction percentages for donations you cannot create. They have to be remembered. So these are more provisions based things so far, particularly 32 and 35. And remaining things that we are going to discuss later will be more or less logical with little bit of memory only required and more of logic, common sense and rationality that will be required, which we'll discuss in the upcoming sessions. Till then, take care, bye bye, thank you very much.